Something a little bit different today, maybe a little bit more fun, but actually still quite a serious point involved. Season's changing, temperatures dropping. None of us like going out on course in a load of heavy clothes and wearing lots of clothing because it means one, the weather's probably not great, and two, it's cold. So how much does it actually affect your shots? So what we're going to do today is run through, starting with just summertime conditions, polo shirt, what kind of club speeds and distance do we get, and as we go through a few different layers of clothing numbers, how much does it affect your data, and is it really something you need to consider when going to the golf course this winter? So we're going to start in the conditions we all want to play in, nice and warm, polo shirt on, see where we get to with this. So we're going to get a few shots with this, add a few layers, get a few more shots, add maybe another couple of layers, see what happens. So these are going to be normal on-course swings. So I'm not going to be looking to try and hit the cover off the board. This is my kind of, for want of a better phrase, sort of cruising level speed on course. So obviously there's no restriction, plenty of movement I can get, the range of motion's all there. And I can make my normal free-flowing swing. It'd be embarrassing if these were the worst batch of shots, wouldn't it? It's me saying how nice the conditions are. If these go everywhere and I hit everything straight with 7 layers on, we're in trouble. So. Okay, so that's a good base average. Loads of room to move, no restriction, nice and warm. See how it changes. So to the eagle-eyed amongst you, changing outfit, I have a base layer on underneath. This is really critical in winter time. And one of the key things now that the tech in clothing is so good, thin layers, trap warmth, trap air, trap heat, and keep us nice and warm without bulking out. If we'd done this 10 years ago, it'd be so much bulkier in terms of clothing. So I've got base layer underneath and now long sleeve polo shirt on top. So, it's not too much more, but certainly, you're away, you're wearing more. And I think that's one of the things, I can feel there's more. I mean, obviously I had a thin polo shirt on before, there was nothing restricting. I can feel that there's more kind of clinging onto my arms, clinging onto my chest. So a few more shots here. Let's see how it feels. So straight away, as I get to the top of my backswing, I can feel the clothes pull a little bit. The dual layers, what happens is the clothes rub against one another and create a little bit of resistance. So whilst I don't really feel like I've lost a lot of the control in the swing, the mobility, but I can definitely feel that slight kind of restriction right at the end of motion. Yeah, and just being able to get that now, I could, if I just loosen the shirt off a little bit, just pulling slightly the top, almost feel like it just stops me getting to my fullest turn, which, it doesn't feel like I've dropped much speed. We'll analyze the data afterwards, but definitely the control, the swing, just feels a bit harder work. Get a little bit more freedom pulling it out a little bit, but certainly, let's say, just aware, one, it's a bit warmer in here doing this as well. The base layer works, that's for sure. But so just conscious that there's that bit more on me. Now, I don't feel like I've lost a lot of control. When we add the next layer, this might change. Right, so one more again. Now I've gone slightly thicker sweater because obviously we're getting really into the winter season now. If I'm going 3 layers with a base layer as one of them, then it's pretty cold. So again, this adding another layer, I already feel certainly around my shoulders and upper arms and chest a little bit more tightness to the clothing, a little more restriction. These are still comfortable, soft clothes, but we're trying to keep the heat in. So this will be where I'd expect to start to see a little bit more of a change in how I feel the swing, how much speed I can generate. Certainly, if I'm trying to get the speed up, how much control I can keep with that as well. So just stood at address, I can feel across the chest and shoulders. It's not a close fitting sweater, but I can certainly feel, you know, those 3 layers are definitely having an effect. Yeah, and immediately as I get up to the top of my backswing there, I can feel much more restriction than just with the 2 layers. You know, this slightly heavier, thicker layer that I just added on makes quite a big difference to, you know, how far I can turn and stay balanced and stay in shape. So I'll see if I can swing through that, because that definitely made me rein in that swing a certain amount. Yeah, I find that I kind of lose the club a little bit more at the top. So it becomes much more about saying, right, can I keep my swing together and keep it in shape? So to keep the timing and the strike consistent, inevitably I'm going to have to rein it in a little bit. So a slightly shorter swing in order to keep the stability and keep the, you know, the straightness and the quality of strike. So I'm having to change the way that I swing a little bit to manage the extra layering. Yeah, so it's taken me a few swings to start to get the timing and the strike and the shot pattern back, and even then still not as comfortable, but you're not going to be particularly comfortable when, if I'm wearing this lot, then in terms of degrees centigrade we're certainly in single digits, that's for sure. One more layer to go. So we've now gone to DEFCON 4. This is now, if I'm out there and this stuff, an extra waterproof layer on top of what I previously had on, then it's got to be something really serious, because I'm not playing in this bad of weather. But ultimately, yeah, it's something that a lot of us do, and it's another way of keeping warm and dry, most importantly through winter. So because of the noise involved in swinging in this and the sensitivity of the microphones, I'm going to hit a few shots, stop, and then describe to camera what it feels like, because otherwise all you'll hear is rustling. So to hit in all of this stuff, some of the motion range isn't affected quite as much as I thought in terms of relative to the previous layering. However, it just does shorten it a little bit. So balance goes off a little bit because of the change in the synchronization, the sequencing changes just a little bit. Potentially because I've now ramped up the layers, I'm getting used to swinging in more layers as well. But it's very warm in this as well. So apologies if I'm out of breath, it's very hot. So it's really how in control do I feel? Yeah, so certainly it's shorter than the first batch of swings with just a polo shirt on, that's without question. But I definitely feel like I've got to work harder to stay connected together and in time. So we'll have a little look at the data, then I can move a little bit more because I'll take this off without making loads of noise, and see how those ramping up the layers of clothing has affected my swing in the data. So my cameraman Luke has told me I've not gone far enough. So I now have a puffer on top. So for those of you that play in the Antarctic, or maybe even Norway, kind of Scandinavia in the turn of winter, Scotland, you might decide to go full 5 layers, 2 jackets, a base layer, a polo shirt, and a long sleeve sweater. So adding another layer on top of this, now I'm really starting to notice a difference. You've probably seen during the footage of me swinging there, I'm having to really change my timing. So as I change direction at the top, I can't swing as far, but also if I try and change direction normally, my arms, my body get completely out of sync. So I'm having to really change the connection, the sequencing and the synchronization to keep my arms and body and club in control. So I'm expecting quite a big change with this one, so let's have a look. So I'll take you through each of the averages of those batches of shots. I think that's the fairest way to do it. So as you can see with the shot data on screen, the first hit, but actually adding an extra layer, even though it's a base layer and a long sleeve polo versus just a singular polo shirt, where I'm hitting a few more shots, club speed's actually gone up. I've not lost any speed. Ball speed, quality of strike pretty similar between the efficiency pretty close. However, what has changed is the flight. The flight's not as good. So where I've added the layer in it, granted it's a marginally restrictive layer with the base layer on top of a long sleeve polo shirt, my quality of strike suffered a little bit. The spin to launch isn't quite as efficient. Delivery lines very, very, very similar. Face a little bit open compared to dead square with a completely free motion. So that tells you we're starting to see a little bit of a shift in how I'm able to move, albeit not the pace I'm able to move. As we then move up, adding another layer, and this is the slightly thicker layer I've got on now we start to see club speed dropping off, a mile an hour and a half, but it's starting to move downward. So ball speed's starting to go down 2 or 3 miles an hour. That on its own, that's then a loss of a few yards, 3, 4 yards in particular, maybe 5 yards. Interesting enough with this one, this is where strike points suffered. And I know that because what we're seeing is lower spin but greater tolerance on spin than the average of shots with one less layer. What that says to me, if it's low spin with a slightly more open face, then what we're seeing there is a bit of a toe strike, bit of gearing. So the quality of a strike has dipped off. In this instance, it's actually created a more efficient flight again. So I haven't actually lost any yardage there, but ball speed's moved down. So my consistency of shot, my club face dispersion, the tolerance of club face alignment, face to path has gone from 0.7 to 2.6. Now that's 2.6 either way. So we can really start to see from a delivery point of view, adding that extra layer and trying to swing at the same don't quite go together. But distance-wise, because of where the miss pattern has gone to, is actually still quite good. Now we're going to move it up a little bit more. 4 layers, so this is before we went the puffer jacket on top of the waterproof. This is the waterproof layer. We're seeing another mile an hour and a half off in club speed. So, and another 2.5 miles an hour in ball speed. So from 2 layers to a sweater and in the waterproof, we're seeing 5 miles an hour drop in ball speed. That starts to become quite significant because 5 miles an hour, really that's 10 yards, with the ball flight being just as good, if nothing else changes. So, again, looking at this, delivery itself, angle of attack, path, very, very repeating. Quite pleased to see that, actually. And actually, face delivery, I've got that pretty much under control. However, I've had to change my speed and had to change my sequencing a little bit to keep that under control. But again, what we see here, we see a much less efficient flight. Now, there was one absolute stinker of a contact in here. That first one up nearly 4,000. Just to see how that affects, if I take that out, yeah, so you could argue this is maybe slightly more representative. Take the absolute rot of a strike, because actually I didn't really miss hit anything else that badly. But we're still seeing spin higher, ball speed that little bit lower. So I've lost the really horrible one that's dropped more ball speed. So that's narrowed that back up a little bit, but the flight's just less efficient, taking 10 yards off. So a mixture of the flight being less efficient and that little bit of loss in club speed, we're now seeing a difference. We're taking 15 yards off at least versus my completely freed up polo shirt base swing. And then moving to the last one, adding the extra jacket layer on top. 102.8 miles an hour, taking another mile an hour and a half off club speed. So interestingly enough, formula-wise, you could argue there's a mile an hour and a half on club speed for me, each extra layer that I put on. But we're now seeing that ball speed drop off, where I'm having to manage my action more and manage my timing. I can't get the freedom and the whip through the swing, so I'm losing that little bit of extra heat on the contact. So that we are now seeing best part of 10 miles an hour on ball speed versus the first batch of hits, so that's pushing 20 odd yards. Actually, flight-wise, again, I got toe misses on these, and we know that because, again, spins low, launch is high, spins low. Face is now much more open. Path has gone more out to in. Face is more open. So we're getting more of a glancing blow because I'm not able to get as deep and rotate as well. We're getting a little bit of an out to in path, open face, but a toe strike, again, has geared the spin down. So it's actually, I've got away with these hits really pretty well. But we're now seeing, again, that distance back. So, as we've moved up in layers, we've dropped club speed, we've dropped mobility, we're starting to lose that quality of contact that we got earlier on because I'm not able to put the same freedom of movement on. I must say that the only other bit that we're not getting that you get out on course, the atmospheric conditions. This is a nice warm studio. If I'm in this amount of layers, 4 or 5 layers out on a golf course, we're not at 20 degrees like we are in here. We're at about 3 or 4 degrees. So we're taking of Celsius. So we're taking 15, 16 degrees of Celsius off. That's going to mean my muscles can't move as efficiently. So I'm going to drop more speed than this when out on the course. So, purely for layers of clothes, we're looking at a carry loss of 15 yards, a total distance loss of 16 yards, but we have to factor in the conditions as well, because if I'm also wearing this many layers, the ground's probably heavy and wetter, you're not going to get the same amount of run out. So you're going to drop back closer to your carry distance in wet, heavy conditions, cold conditions, rather than getting that nice firm first bounce and run out. So you almost have to look more to where your carry distance is for winter golf rather than the run out. And there's one other screen which I'm going to switch this to, which also helps display the track and the pattern of movement as we add layers, as we go from kind of strong and up the kind of the long left end of that graph to moving to the, just in the polo shirt, to the yellow, which is still pretty good, nicely grouped with 1 extra layer. The blue is starting to creep back and the dispersion starting to spread, to the red, which is shorter and a little bit more offline, to then the green, which is the last batch, which is slightly shorter again, but a little bit more of that miss right where I'm just not able to clear through as well. So there's a clear dropping back and shortening, and for me moving off to the right as I add more layers of clothing. So whilst as much as this is a bit more of a fun video and a look at kind of sort of a hypothetical look at what happens as we layer up, possibly more than I might do playing golf, there is a real kind of point to this, in that as the seasons change, as we layer up clothes, as the conditions change, you have to think about, there are lots of, excuse the pun, layers of changes that happen that affect our distances. So when we're playing winter golf, don't get disheartened at the distance you're hitting. There are about 4 or 5 factors that are going to reduce your yardage down, and means that you've got to really play the course differently, strategize differently, and focus on where your landing distance is almost more than the total, because that becomes your total when the ground's soft and it's nasty and cold. So hope you've had a bit of fun with this video. We certainly have, and have a check out all the other videos. We've got some others on where we've done a TrackMan video relating to temperature on the golf ball and that effect as well. So check that video out, as long as all the others on our channel, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.